Dear comrades, the conscious realization of the movement's arrogant objectives in the conditions of the World War III is impossible without the creative use and the dialectical development of the revolutionary theory and methodology of Marxism. It is precisely for this reason that it's impossible to develop a correct strategy and tactics on the basis of the eclectic judgments like aphorisms and arbitrary historical analogies as if it's the same situation during the World War III with those of World War I or World War II. The World Anti-imperialist platform has promoted a collective effort to scientifically substantiate its objects in practical and organizational composition and development based on the study and determination of the character of the era and the situation, the contradictions, the competing interests of the forces involved in the war, the forces of progress and regression on global scale. For the first time in the history of capitalism, the economic parasitic mechanism of the financial oligarchy of imperialism is being undermined on such a scale. The system of surplus value extraction on a regional and global scale works by siphoning of monopoly super profits from all other peoples. That means by imposing of a peculiar tribute on them. It is an imperative duty of the World Anti-imperialist platform to scientifically and ideologically explain that there is a single war with different fronts: Ukraine, Palestine, the Indo-Pacific, Africa, Latin America, etc., in which there is only one enemy, the imperialist axis with the USA at its head and its instruments spread as tentacles over the planet. Especially in the USA and in other imperialist countries, it is necessary to convince the youth that people whose ruling class oppresses, exploits, and exterminates other peoples by means of super exploitation, wars, and genocide cannot be free. The character of the present World War III shares some similarities but is qualitatively and essentially different from the two previous ones because of the era, of the context, and the character of the forces that are de facto involved in it. Therefore, the attitude of progressive anti-imperialist and communist forces cannot be determined mechanistically through metaphysical proportional analogies as if nothing has changed since 1914 or 1940. Due to the tectonic rearrangements in the global capital system and the balance of the economic, political, and military forces, inter-imperialist antithesis cannot play an important role in World War III. Hence, in contrast to World War II, today, during World War III, the strategically important frontal policy, the victorious policy of alliances, must prioritize the consistent and militant anti-imperialism, the prioritization of the unified US-NATO EU axis of aggression as the number one enemy of humanity, the instrument of which is the current forms of fascism. Therefore, it is only through the consistent frontal anti-imperialist struggle that anti-fascism today gains meaning and is organically linked to the socialist objectives of communists. Those who do not put forward a consistent anti-imperialist position in today's struggle and appeal to the preeminence of an abstract anti-fascism as if nothing had changed since the interwar period of the 20th century, are objectively acting in a disorientating and undermining way. The theoretical inability to diagnose the current era, the conjecture and the de facto bipolar character of the war does not allow some forces to prioritize the objectives of the movement in a rational and effective way, making their most likely pure anti-fascist intentions rather unproductive. The most consistent version of this deception is linked to the irrational metaphysical dogma of the so-called imperialist pyramid, which the current leadership of the Communist Party of Greece basically promotes. According to this anti-Marxist, anti-Leninist self-delusion, all the contemporary states of the planet are portrayed as fully imperialist. Therefore, according to similar dogmas, instead of the single World War III with many battlefields on the planet, today we have a multitude of conflicts of undefined character. Bourgeois clashes between imperialists, so that both anti-fascism and anti-imperialism are irrelevant and meaningless for them. A theoretical, ideological and practical struggle against the forces of opportunism and revisionism is also necessary, as they sow confusion and discord, as they deny the necessity of a frontal anti-imperialist and anti-fascist struggle, as they separate fascism from imperialism. The escalation of the conflict in World War III cannot be a linear quantitative process in the sense of an expansion and prolongation of a proxy war or of limited special military operations involving state, interstate and mercenary private military units fully controlled by the political leaders. At a certain point, the dynamics of the armed conflict subordinate any further escalation to the logic of the total war, reducing or even eliminating the range of political choices and maneuvers available to the political leaderships. In this case, inertial escalation is completely subordinated to the operational, military and technological conditions of the confrontation within the balance of the power. Precisely then, given the available means, logic itself, as a rational, conscious human capacity, can be completely set aside. This irreversible turning point seems to be rapidly and inexorably approaching. During Second World War, despite the existence of huge stockpiles of chemical and biological weapons, their large-scale use was prevented. USA imperialism is the only world power to have used the atomic bomb, having dropped 2 of them against Japanese civilians in Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the time when the war was practically over, and the Soviet army, together with the People's Armies of China and Korea, was crushing the remnants of Japanese militarism. Imperialism committed this crime against humanity in order to intimidate the Soviet Union and the global progressive movement by demonstrating its monopoly on the possession of the then new atomic weapon. There is no guarantee that the powers of the imperialist axis are of aggression with their evidently socially irresponsible, uneducated, ruthless, and short-sighted political personnel will not, in their paranoia, try to use the infinitely more destructive weapons of mass destructions available today, capable of wiping out all life in our planet. Only a powerful global frontal movement of all anti-imperialist and socialist forces can act as deterrent. The embodiment of this law governed necessity is our World Anti-Imperialist Platform, whose actions and impact are constantly being developed. They organize summits to promote their predatory and destructive agenda of the imperialist axis of aggression. We place the highest priority on the struggle of the peoples against imperialism for the salvation of humanity, the victorious struggle for its revolutionary unification, for socialism and communism. There is only one enemy, imperialism. Death to fascism and imperialism. Defeat to the imperialist axis of USA, NATO, AU. Victory to the forces of anti-imperialism and socialism.